Welcome to this week's edition of Rugby Unfiltered. I'm your host, Jan de Koning, and with me, as always, Eugene, Eloff. Loffie, welcome.
Hi, Jan. Yes, it's great to be back, and interesting rugby we're going to talk about of the past weekend. I had both outcomes wrong, but let's chat about it.
You mean I actually got something right, Loffie?
Yeah, I think you should actually go to the casino.
I'll try that next week.
On a serious note, some big disappointments this weekend, but we'll talk about it now.
Yeah, Eugene, I want to start with the Lions Bulls. I think there's two aspects here. The one is the obvious one is the coaches. Johan Ackerman's had time with those players. He's had his Springboks for a while, and suddenly his team starts functioning. The Lions had the same team since the Currie Cup final, the same coaches for the last 5 years, and every season they have patches of good rugby, and then they fall out the bus. They don't make the playoffs, and they're heading exactly that way. They haven't won a game in a month. There were 2 draws, I'm aware of that, but they haven't won a game in a month. That must be concerning, especially for a Lions supporter like yourself.
Yeah, it was very disappointing. But just before we go back on your first remark you made about Johan Ackerman and the Bulls, I think in our first podcast we talked about the new coaches, JP and him. They started changing the culture of the sides, and the winning actually enhances that culture of the sides. And you can see both of those teams are playing for each other, and they are just putting their bodies on the line. And the coaches have got it right. They've used the wins to gel their team. But you're also right about the Lions. Every year it's the same pattern. And the last thing I want to do is take out coaches. But the question is asking on social media and the media, the people are asking, what is the problem? Why is the coaches still there after so many years of not winning any silverware? If we take the game per se, it just looked as if the Lions didn't have a plan. They came out. The Bulls, on the other hand, were playing direct rugby, contact rugby. They were keeping their structure well, and the game wasn't open for us or for the Lions to get into the game. What I did also find is that tactically we played wrong. I know there's an old saying, sometimes fire has to fight fire, but if your pack is being dominated, even at the breakdowns, you need to change. You're not playing those channels. And I think that's a team where the coaches need to go to the drawing board and say, what was the problem this weekend? Are we the problem? How are we going to solve this problem? It's not over yet, but how are we going to solve it? And I think that most probably the shareholders and people closer to the boards are going to start putting pressure on Roelof and the guys to maybe ring the changes.
Eugene, I agree with you, definitely. The one problem, the Lions had a dominant pack for most, especially against the Welsh teams who haven't got strong forwards, and even the Italian teams in large part. The reality is that they came up against a Springbok-laden pack, and they met their match. And because they didn't win the scrums, they didn't start getting penalties from the scrums. They didn't get territory, and then came the key in which you mentioned, is the decision-making and the tactical nuance. You had a Springbok, double World Cup winning Springbok fly half, dominating play, and you had a discard from the Bulls, Chris Smith. And I'm not taking on Chris because of his personality or anything. I just think he's wrong for the Lions. The type of rugby the Lions want to play, you need a dynamic fly half. I almost want to go back to Elton Yankees. I know he's had his problems, but Elton Yankees moves around. He attacks the advantage line. Chris Smith stands back. He either crabs across the field or he stands still and passes the ball. There is no forward momentum for the back. You're taking your outside backs out of the game. Whereas Andre Pollard is so astute. He kept putting the Lions under pressure by putting them in their own half. And it's significant. I mean, the turnovers for both teams, it was 16 for the Lions and 14 that the Bulls lost. The territory were pretty even. The Bulls only had 51%. And the possession is pretty similar. The Bulls had 52%. So it's not like they dominated possession and territory. They just made better decisions. And the result is a team known for running rugby scored only 2 tries. And the team known as a one-dimensional with a duo fly half, scored 8 tries. That tells you something about decision making and being clinical and finishing the game. And I think that's where the Bulls beat the Lions. They beat them with experience in key positions, also in scrum half.
Okay, Jan, I just want to go back. We can't pin this down on Chris Smith. The pack, it starts in the front, the pack of forwards. They were outplayed on all facets of the game. Then sometimes it forces a fly-off to play in the pocket. I think Chris Smith's a good fly-off, and I think he can get the line going. But I think that open running play from broken play and quick ball and so on, we didn't see. And now we can't blame one guy and say, listen, this is because of him that we didn't get momentum. We didn't get ball on the front foot. And it was a discussion me and you had in the previous podcast. Any backline or most backlines are flyers and look brilliant behind a pack that's going forward. And Pollard made a lot of mistakes as well, but he was playing behind a winning pack. And take no mistakes, those few older players, Marcel and them, had a big influence on that game. Also bringing the toughness, they were dominating in front, physically dominating. And young, to me, the one thing that we've always realized and accepted of the Lions is their fight they have, their spirit they have. They never die. And I just felt they died early in the game. It's as if they just gave up.
But Loffie, you will know if a coach sees on the field that the guys are not committed and they're losing energy. And I need to clear this up. I'm not taking Chris on us personally. It's not. He's not a bad person. He's not a bad player. I just don't think he's the right fit for a team that wants to play a very expansive game. But the coach chooses him. If the coach chooses him, he must play a game plan that suits Chris Smith. If Chris Smith is struggling, if he can't get the backline going because his forwards on the back foot, then they have to change the game. Then the scrum half has to kick more or something. Somebody needs to take pressure off Chris Smith. And that's all to do with coaching. And I would like your input here. But I think we've spoken about this before. Even Van Rooyen never changes. I mean, they're still playing that. As soon as the pressure comes on, they're still playing. There's one up runner forwards with one supporter. There's no change in tactics, and the Bulls were waiting for them all afternoon. That's why they were bullied.
Yeah, we were tactically outplayed. And Jan, again, you can only play that expansive brand of rugby with possession, quick possession, if the game is open and fast. And the Bulls had that sussed out. Maybe the moment was too big, but I mean, most of the players and the coaches have been there many years, so they're used to the pressures of those games. Maybe it's one of those games that they need to go sit in the locker room, lock the door, sort each other out. The players also need to take responsibility, not only the coaches. The players need to take responsibility and come out with new fire and new energy, because if that doesn't happen, heads are going to roll. It's a given.
Yeah. The problem is, what do they have in reserve? Because they stuck with this combination in terms of management combination for so long. We've seen one forward coach go, we've seen another forward coach go, and they've got I know Wessel, who's a really nice person, and he's a good coach, and he was a good player. So he didn't become a Springbok for being a bad player. But I think you can only play with what you've got, and if you keep selecting that, and perhaps I'm too harsh on Ivan here, but if you keep selecting the same players, even though they don't perform, then it's the coach's problem. Then it's a coaching problem. Then it's maybe even it's getting instructions from Rudolf Stroili. I'm not sure whether that's true or not. But I cannot understand why he keeps selecting the same players when they're underperforming. And there's a handful of players. You can count on your one hand the number of Lions players that consistently perform every week. I'm not talking players about that. There's one good game here and one good game there. When there's a win against a weak Welsh team. I'm talking about players who can perform week after week. And you can count those Lions players on your one hand. So either they're going to go recruit, or they're going to start selecting other players and give younger players a chance. But you're right. If you don't change, they're going to keep having the same results, and they're not going to make the playoffs again. They're going to play the Challenge Cup again, and it's going to be the same story over next year.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. Well, Eugene, let's move on to the Sharks Stormers game. It's another game of intrigue and coaches. I mean, you touched on it earlier, JP Peterson, and we spoke about that, needing some time to settle with the team. He definitely changed the culture, and we spoke about it, about Andre Essays and making Andre Essays the captain. Eugene, before we move on to the next game, the Sharks game, I think it's worth listening to the coach and captain and their reaction to the game and what their plan is for the next few weeks. So they've got a chance. I mean, they've got a break now for a couple of weeks, and then they play 2 more derbies, and then they start playing European teams. The Lions have got a problem because their season ends on a very, very difficult note. So they've got a problem. So I think it's worth listening to the Lions coaches. And then we listen to Johan Ackerman. He's also had some interesting things to say. And I think it's worth listening to the coaches, because sometimes what they say and what you read between the lines are more important. So I think let's listen to the coaches now.
Yeah, I think we've got about 6 more at home. First 2 is against South African opposition, Sharks and Stormers. So it's not just the energy, but it's also the execution with the energy that need to be more consistent. It's a big March, April, May is going to be massive for us. December, Jan is tough in terms of travel, in terms of heat and cold. So we did a fair bit of travel and micromanaging the last 2 months. So next week will be off week, which I think is much needed for mental freshness and physical freshness. Then we've got prepping for the two derby games. Then another week, which we can fine tune, and then we're playing the European team. So we know that the last 2 games, Leinster, Munster away, is tough. So we probably in a position where we need to have done the majority of the business before we get to those final 2 games.
All of the guys in the change room is proud men, and obviously we'll take this loss at home quite hard. Like Coach said, we have a week off now to really switch off, and then when we come back, have a look at what we did not good and how we can rectify that, and put all our baskets into the URC, or all our eggs in one basket for the URC, and really focus on that. But I have no doubt that the guys will step out of this and we'll go forward.
Got close ties with the Lions, and always will have. You know, this specific stadium where we're sitting now, if I think how many captains run meals we had here, and then the massages happening there on the right side, and I obviously had medias in the same spot, and watching the team from above here and build up a great memories with the players and the staff. And this was, like you said, I came for a test in the past to Ellis Park, but never on the field, never in the change rooms. So a lot of memories came back when I walked on the field today for the first time. But obviously, you know, that's memories that you will last for always, but you start building new memories, and I'm with a new team now, and I'm, you know, starting to build new relationships with those players, and they now my sons, and that I, you know, looking after, and I wanted them to do well. And it was just strange to walk the other side, you know, walking to the right side and walking to the other side for after so long time. But yeah, but I mean, obviously we wanted to win. That was ultimately the goal. We probably hang in there, you know. We put ourselves in a good position. Like I said earlier in the week in the media, Europe, we're in the top 60 now, so now anything can happen there. A playoff game, yes, Glasgow is a top game. They showed it last night again, but you know, if we can put a good team out and we can compete like we can, then you never know. Now we're in the URC, and I think the Edinburgh and this Lions game just hopefully will be better than if you think you lost that game, the amount of work you had to put in then after this break. So it just keeps us in touch, but it's early days, that we've achieved nothing. There's a lot of quality teams. If you just think about the teams we still have to play, and it's going to be, you know, a big, massive challenge after the break. The positive is hopefully a lot of players will return after the break, and obviously from a selection point it makes it tough, but it's a good position to be in then. And yeah, like I said, all I want is the players to enjoy what they're doing, and if we can get into playoffs, I don't think, like I said, any team really wants to play us. So then we give ourselves a chance.
It's very interesting what they said, but let's move on to the Sharks Stormers game. A very interesting game, another game of contrasting coaching styles. You know, the Sharks started off very badly, and suddenly they're in the playoff race. And JP is getting the team, and you spoke last week about the change of the culture, and you spoke about it earlier. And I think making Andre Estres the captain has got the culture right. And you could even see how Khaleesi's game has improved. Why? Because he can focus on his own game. He can focus on what he needs to do. Even if he only plays 60 minutes or 50 minutes, it's 50 valuable minutes, 60 valuable minutes, and you get good value out of the player. You now get good value out of young players. I mean, there's 2 or 3. Even Jordan Hendricks is looking like a fly-off again, a fly-off that Rassie might want to call up again. You know, he's certainly in the picture, but, you know, who knows, maybe Jordan gets another cap this year. He's certainly playing much better, and he's a good fly-off. And in contrast, the Stormers at this much hyped up Sasha Feinberg Ngomzulu, and he's a brilliant player, like no mistake. I'm not saying he's a bad player. He's just having a very bad run, and I think the captaincy is not doing him any favors.
Yes, Jan, I think the recipe in the Sharks tank is spot on. New coach, and what JP did, he's an intelligent young man. He empowered the players. He surrounded him by some of the senior guys, made them leaders. Not only Andre Sainz, a few other players as well. And he empowered the players, and he earned his respect that way. And then, as I also mentioned earlier, then with the team winning, it becomes easy. It's easy to change the culture. Say, guys, you see, this is working. So yeah, they're on a good run now. They're in a good place. They're going to be a difficult team, and I really hope the best. I think Dobbo's got a tough job ahead of him, you know, especially with the team starting the competition so well, really doing all the facets of the game well, and all of a sudden they hit this wall. And I've been in that position as a coach myself. You start thinking, but what is the problem here? They actually started off very well, and at one stage I thought they could win that game, and then it just opened up, and 1 or 2 silly mistakes and decisions, Sharks getting points, and then it was like the wave coming. I think Dobbo would be disappointed on what the players brought on the field. You know, the mistakes, I'm not going to read, everybody saw the mistakes, the blatant silly mistakes that were made by individual players, and some players playing their hearts out. So, you know, for the teams, nothing is lost yet, but they need to get together and change direction, you know, as soon as possible. And I agree with you. Maybe the timing making Sasha captain is not right, not for the team and not for him as an individual player, because already the world is saying, but is he really that good? He's starting to fold under pressure and so on. So maybe one should keep the captaincy with the senior guy and let Sasha play his game. But I'm sure they'll bounce back.
Yeah, they've got enough quality there, and I think John Dobson, again, you know, this is not personal, but he's got a few issues, like you said, to solve. One of the things that I do want to mention again, and I think we spoke about it last week as well, is after the Bulls game, John Dobson said, we cannot continue this level of physicality week after week. These guys won't last. And the next few games, you could clearly see it. Those players weren't as physical. They can't maintain that physicality. So they will have the odd, really good game, physical and brutal game like they did against the Bulls, which they obviously wanted to target and wanted to get up to. And now it's starting to show. They even the Sharks. So the interesting thing is that the Sharks had more than 60% possession and more than 60% territory. Even though they made 21 turnovers, the Sharks conceded 21 turnovers, they still dominated enough. And this Stormers couldn't get over the advantage line. They couldn't get at the breakdown. They were dominated everywhere, physically dominated. And I think it's that attrition rate, that attrition level of attrition in the team is beginning to show. And Dobson, it's something Dobson spoke about openly, that he's concerned that that attrition rate will get to his team.
Yeah, I think it's not only his team, it's all the teams, especially the South African teams who've been continuously playing. I think the big difference for me in this weekend with that match, Jan, was that the Sharks played as a team and the Stormers played as individuals.
100% correct. And again, I'm not trying to criticize Sasha. He's a brilliant player, and he's going to be a good flyer. He's going to be a flyer from the Springbok team for a long time. I just think he needs some maturity. I think he needs to mature as a player, and certainly the captaincy I don't think is the right fit for him now. And because he's so individualistic, it's now rubbing off on his. And then you've got a fullback who's even more individualistic, and nobody is ever quite sure exactly what they're doing next. And that's causing the confusion in that team. The other thing, of course, is the discipline. So Dobson spoke about it at the weekend, and I think he's it's something he's addressed a couple of times. It's the discipline. Again, 16 penalties, and that robs you of any momentum. So if you only get 30 or 40% possession in a game, let's say 40% possession in a game, 40% territory, and you then still concede 16 penalties, you're not going to get enough opportunities. And the Sharks destroyed them in terms of, this attacking, wild, free-flowing Stormers team. And that's why they look so clueless, because the Sharks, and you're right, the Sharks were just as a team on them all the time. Like I did last week and again this week, they were just cohesively far better than the Stormers.
Yeah, Jan, I don't think they were clueless. They were just out of their source, and they couldn't get the momentum back. I want to make a point, and maybe that's the next discussion we can have. I thought the referee was not consistent, and I thought it had a big influence on the game, especially at scrum time and at the breakdown. So maybe it's an interesting discussion we can take on next time.
Eugene, indeed, it is a discussion we're going to have in our next podcast for next week. We're going to have Freek Burger, well-known, respected referee, and he has some interesting things he wants to chat to us about. So, but it is so for the viewers. We will have Freek Burger on our podcast next week. So please tune in. And yeah, till next week, we'll chat some laws. And Eugene, thank you very much again.
No, thanks very much, Jan. And good luck to all the teams. Don't ever give up hope, and never stop working at it. Never stop fighting at it. It's never over until it's over.
Till next week. Cheers.